the geo warrants, if you're familiar with geo warrants, they can drop a little square around your house and kind of pull pattern of life for everyone who's come in. I mean, it's phenomenal. Imagine you're looking at a map and you can pick anything on the map and we can travel anywhere, just like a regular map, Google Map or Apple Maps or anything. And you can drop a little polygon or a little square around the map. And let's say you drop it around Walmart or the 7-Eleven. It will generate everyone who was within that grid during that timeline. So I think the issue is, what if you were there during an event? Or what if your user ID was in connection with something, or you were passing by, or the polygon was too big, and now you're inadvertently being investigated? 1978 Privacy Act only applies to governments, and it doesn't apply to the private sector. It's a workaround. The government can't spy on you, but private companies can through these data sets, and then facilitate and supplement that information back to the government for whatever they need. I can explain it to you with your background in kind of military and cyber, but it's hard to kind of explain to someone who doesn't have these concepts at how well it works and how pervasive it is. They're tracking all of us constantly through ways that you could have never even imagined. Are you familiar with something called UDL, Unified Data Library?
That sounds, yes, I've heard that term before.
Apparently, it's a new library of data that Space Force and the military are using to ingest data just to absorb data from different data sets. And I think they're primarily focused on geospatial and kind of satellite data. And it's just so interesting. Yeah. It's like a pipeline to receive, disseminate, and kind of organize and distribute data, which mostly focuses on geospatial data. And China has an equivalent, which is pretty interesting. There's an equivalent to what they have. They don't share data back with the United States.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah.
I downloaded all of their China data the other day. I have all of it now.
Okay. I'm going to do this real fast. Welcome to the show, dude. I appreciate you coming on.
You.
It's really nice to meet you, Patrick. And we were just having a really interesting conversation, guys. We're going to kind of pick it back up. But so you were talking about UDL. Can you say that again? What UDL is?
Yeah, Unified Data Library, UDL, and it seems to be a kind of pipeline to absorb and distribute geospatial data, how the government absorbs data and how they kind of acquire data and then redistribute that data. And it seems to be mostly focused on space objects, orbital TLEs, satellites, and yeah, how interesting. I actually just learned about it not too long ago. And then I found out there's an equivalent called Space Mapper, which is the equivalent form to the Chinese UDL. And, they don't share information back with the United States, but they collect everything we pump out, right? So the US is pumping out kind of tracking geospatial objects, satellites, different whatever's up there. And they distribute all this information along with, I think, 13 or 12 other countries. And China's building an equivalent to what the US has, and they're tracking more. They're actually tracking a lot more. And yeah, I downloaded all of it directly from China the other day.
Was this with the petawatt Tianjin supercomputer leak?
That was not. I actually saw that, and that is so interesting. I think that was actually a few months prior. And
It was. It just got reported like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Do you know anything more about that? I mean, that's an incredible amount of information from a supercomputer.
I know that it was several petabytes worth of information, which is really hard to fathom for a lot of people. But
it is.
I, I have not looked through a bunch of it. What I did look through was a lot of their AI wargaming that had been made public. And I did an article on it, my first ever Substack, on that data. And essentially what it is they're using an AI interpretation to try and predict different outcomes when it comes to going to war, really, with the United States, because there's some very specific information inside of it. It involves using different missile sets. It involves American aircraft carriers, American missile sets. And so think of it as like a playbook that they were trying to build for thousands of different outcomes so that if they were put into a situation, whatever that situation was, that they felt like they could have a checklist or a playbook where an AI had predicted the most logical next step. And so that's sort of what they were doing with this. And obviously, there's a bunch of limitations with doing something like that. One of the goals, the stated goals inside this information was that they were making up gaps in real-time military operations. So the United States conducts war pretty much constantly. Like that's just the way it is. And so a lot of the information that we have, experience that we have, it's all real time. It has really never stopped. We're always doing something around the world. The Chinese just aren't as active globally when it comes to military operations. And what they do military wise is more regional anyway. Power projection, global assets, and stuff like that around the world. The United States has a plethora of information all the time about this. And so they're using artificial intelligence. They are domestic language models that they're using on top of like stacked ones. And obviously they're using American language models as well as stacking with their domestic ones, but basically trying to cover the ground that they don't have just from a lack of military operations. And the United States war games in a way like that too, but obviously there's a big difference because the United States isn't necessarily trying to make up for a lack of information. The Chinese are. The United States is using an
Mm.
abundance of actual data, and they're running that through these models and then predicting and wargaming. And one of the big focuses, and there was a book written about it a while ago, that the book is kind of outdated, is obviously the U.S. military's kill chain, and that's what the name of that book is kill chain. And the whole premise of that book is understanding why the military kill chain is outdated, and then it discusses using this predictive modeling to basically fix that and make it more efficient. But the Chinese use it in a different way because, like I said, they don't have the data set that the United States does, essentially. And so they're control computing some of these things, scaling that up and down, trying to understand like what they need to do. It's pretty interesting. That's about it, though. That's essentially the gist of what I've gotten into, wading into petabytes worth. I don't have a problem saying that. Petabytes worth of data that got released from that.
Wow, yeah, fascinating. I was kind of saying, like, how do you even extract that much information in the first place?
I
Like,
know.
I got my 50 petabyte drive ready to go. Like, it just came
Right.
in the mail. Like, what? Like,
It's in my
probably
pocket.
through
Yeah.
probably through cloud servers or VPS or something. They just dump it all. Yeah, it is
Hmm.
interesting. I think we're at a whole new development with AI and kind of what can be accomplished now.
Hmm.
And, it's everyone's best friend and worst enemy at the same time because we all kind of secretly hate it but use it
Hmm.
at the same time for different reasons, which is so interesting. Well, what do you think with your experience and your military background of different militaries and governments kind of implementing AI?
Hmm.
Do you think that it's at a level where it's fully developed and kind of I don't want to say military grade. I know that's a joke amongst some people with certain circles when you say
I think I
military
get what you're
grade.
trying to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
the military grade is a joke for sure. Yeah, Cheap the lowest bidder, military
Yeah,
grade. But
yeah, that's what I'm referring to. But like,
right.
what do you think about introducing AI into kind of different systems? Because they were discussing introducing it into the Pentagon.
Hmm.
You can put it in all sorts of different ways. Yeah, just kind of
Sure.
interesting. What do you think about that?
I think it has a lot of application. It makes me really weary. And there's a bunch of different roads you can walk down when you're talking about how you're utilizing artificial intelligence, right? If you're using it just like administratively, sort of streamline processes and shit like that, which I'm sure the Pentagon could use, I don't really have a problem with it at all. I do think that AI is very prone to its own interpretation of things. And I've seen a lot from the civilian sector where companies will lean too heavy on that artificial intelligence and it gives them a bunch of bad information and they're making decisions on it because they're not actually double checking the information that the AI is giving them. And human beings have the tendency to lean on things like that too much and become dependent on it and sort of learn or lose the ability to think
Right.
themselves and sort of offload that capability. And so I wouldn't want to see something like that happening. This ties back into this like greater idea that Socrates had about hating the concept of writing down information because he felt like once you'd offloaded that information onto paper or whatever it was that they were using, that your brain now has an excuse to not recall that info because it's stored somewhere else. So he actually was an active advocate against writing information down, which is sort of interesting. And I think this conversation about artificial intelligence and information is sort of mirrored that in a modern way. There are a bunch of ways, though, that I think and know that it's being used. And I think that using in a way, like just like talk about targeting packages and things like this, I think that that's a very unique way to sort of run through and then prioritize targets and then make quicker decisions when it comes to how you're going to prioritize targets. Maybe we were talking about missile
Mm.
packages. Maybe you're talking about whatever data set you've collected. And then maybe we're talking about a special forces operation and prioritizing those targets based on what's the word I'm looking for here? Prioritizing those targets based on what is present there. I guess I could put it that way. But I've also seen we've had a conversation with a company called Kratos. Are you familiar with Kratos?
Oh, it sounds familiar. I can't say that I am, though.
They're making unmanned aircraft and they also make missiles as well. They have one called Hornet, and
Mm.
actually it sitting on Taiwan as well right now. It's part of their air defense system. But one of the goals they have is to make a attritable craft. And attritable, for anybody not familiar with the term, essentially means that it's made cheap and it can be destroyed and reproduced really, really fast. Think of the word attrition, right? And then you get a attritable craft from that. And so it's not expensive to make them. They're run autonomously. There is a human inside the kill chain because there's, they have this moral ethical dilemma with artificial intelligence making decisions about killing human beings without a human being being in the kill chain. But those craft, they're jet powered and they are able to do things that a human being can't do. And by that, I mean maneuverability and moving at speeds and making decisions. And when you don't have to consider a human pilot, you can do different things with aircraft and get more risky and use them in ways that you wouldn't use an aircraft that is occupied by a human pilot. That's artificial intelligence as well. I think application there
Mm.
is an astounding thing. I think that
Yeah.
revolutionizes sort of the forward projection. And then also it extends the life of legacy systems as well. So one of the things that artificial intelligence is doing in these attritable craft is the wingman program. And so the wingman program, when you think of it, you think of like the 35, maybe the new F-47, the F-22 have these craft that are attached to them, and they're used for offensive and defensive capabilities. But you can program these things to fly alongside a legacy aircraft like the 16, the F-15, and you can sort of extend the usability and life of those aircraft when they're in contested airspace because they're accompanied by these wingmen. And again, that's artificial intelligence, and it's making those decisions on its own with human being in the kill chain. So I don't know if that really answers your question. I think that there's a broad use for it. I see the moral and ethical dilemma of just using artificial intelligence as the final decision maker for killing human beings. I am glad that there's a human being involved in the kill chain for that. But I think that it could come with a wide margin of error as well, and that worries me as well. I tend to think and sort of operate under this impression that whatever we see forward facing is not as good as whatever is being used at the back of the room, essentially, on the other side of the wall by
Mm.
the U.S. government. I think an example of some of that technology, not necessarily artificial intelligence, but it was this ghost murmur thing they used to recover that down pilot. And there was some quantum magnetometry that was used inside with that. I really don't know how it works. I just know that was used. But that's, again, like one of these things that I've never heard of before. Most people never heard of before.
Sure.
And we're
Yeah.
introducing some of this new tech. Um, I don't know. Does that
Wow.
answer your question? You can ask me more, whatever, if
No,
I
it
if I
does.
totally.
It's definitely interesting to hear what your input is because you have a different mindset with your background, right? So I think I would have answered that question totally different, kind of from the perspective of how AI is affecting people kind of at like the
Hmm.
public trust level. I can see the applications of it militarily, how it advantageous it would be, right? Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean
I
the
think it's a
yeah,
requirement at this point. I think it's a requirement for the military at this point because
wow, yeah. Mm,
I would say because adversaries in the United States are going to use it, and it's like one of these things where
yes.
we're unfortunately brought into this race with artificial intelligence and then quantum compute as well, because our adversaries are going to use it. But I think you might be talking about something like a data sovereignty issue or a personal liberty issue when it comes to artificial intelligence, right? Surveillance state sort of thing. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Not so much. That's kind of one
Okay.
aspect of it. Yeah,
Misunderstood.
I have a lot of friends who are very focused on that. And
Mhm.
that's kind of a whole nother issue. What do you do with the growing pervasive surveillance state that's kind of very
Yeah.
benign to everyone, especially with a lot of these companies doing ad tracking. Are you familiar with ad tracking at all?
Are you Are you referring to like literally like advertisements like
Hmm.
for? Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah, there was a lawsuit actually waged against Target because they were
Oh.
sending ads to a minor
Mm.
because her phone picked up that she was pregnant before she informed anybody in her household. And I guess she had the Target app on her phone, and the Target started sending actual mail outs to her for pregnancy products. And her family found out she was pregnant that way, and they sued Target and won, actually. So,
Interesting, interesting. Well, yeah, there's also a lot of companies who are able to pull the analytics of who receives the ads, as well
hmm.
as your GPS location and your user ID,
Mm,
lots of personal information. So, you know, we kind of have this concept in our minds of tracking someone through their cell phone through cell phone pings. Well,
hmm.
there's a whole new level of surveillance which is happening through what they call ad tracking.
Okay.
And there's a way to target and kind of reverse the ads that are being sent out to pull your exact location. And
Hmm.
it's really kind of remarkable. And a lot of people, I don't want to say people, there's a lot of companies who are involved with it. There's a lot of big ones. And it's very interesting. And I think a lot more people should be made aware of it or just kind of have a general idea because I don't think people understand how advanced it is and
Okay.
how advanced you really are to be able to pull someone's exact location from a series of just really different methods. And it's all from the apps being installed on your phone. And
Mm,
it's something. Yeah, I've seen some of the maps from a few different of the companies and you know, pattern of life, behavioral tracking device, life analysis, how long that device has been on, where's it been every day for the past 2 to 3 years, cross
hmm.
correlating that with other devices. And yeah, wow. Yeah,
It
cat's out of the bag at this point. It
no.
kind of makes me laugh at a lot of individuals who I talk to online and they don't want to like tell me X, Y, or Z or they try to want to be anonymous. Like
Hmm.
that whole age is dead. Like if you knew the level of surveillance and the ad tracking that's happening, like, oh, I mean, the geo warrants, if you're familiar with geo warrants, they can drop a little
Hmm.
square around your house and kind of pull pattern of life for everyone who's
Yeah.
come in. I mean, it's phenomenal. All right. And
It's
it's all because of technology and computers. I mean,
mm.
wow, wow. Yeah,
It's scary. It's funny that you say that because this is something I talk about sometimes on the podcast. Is this whole concept of like data sovereignty and you're protecting your information. I'm like, that's like a boomer complaint now or boomer worry.
sure.
I don't think people understand just how much that game is over. Like
Yeah.
you're not covering the paper anymore, protecting your answers. It doesn't matter. No, that it's actually insane when it comes to this sort of thing. What you're talking about is like building a personal dossier on you based on your ad preferences is kind of what it sounds like you're talking about. And then being able to build
Mm,
a dossier of the people that you spend time around,
mm,
because that's really scary when you think about it. Are you able to sort of like give me an example for people that are listening about like how that can be leveraged against somebody?
Yes. It's just not accurate. There's a lot of context that's just kind of missing from that, right? So the
Mm,
way these tools work, maybe I can explain a lot, especially for people who may not be aware. Imagine you're looking at a map and you can pick anything on the map and we can travel anywhere, just like a regular map, Google Map or Apple Maps or anything. And you can drop a little polygon, excuse me, a little polygon or a little square around the map.
mhm,
And let's say you drop it around Walmart or the 7-Eleven. It will generate everyone who was within that grid during that timeline. So I think the issue is, what if you were there during an event? Or what if your user ID was in connection with something, or you were passing by, or the polygon was too big, and now you're inadvertently being investigated for something that you just may not have a part of. I mean, it's really kind of hard to say. You don't really know because you
mm,
don't really know who a lot of the users are of these tools. Um, I know many of their websites are very vague. They're very cautious with the language. It's one of these websites you view and you kind of have no idea what the hell's going on. And yeah, just how interesting, right? It's a specific niche of technology that has enabled companies to bypass all sorts of laws. The the
really?
1978 Privacy Act only applies to governments and it doesn't apply to the private sector. So it's a workaround. The government can't spy on you, but private companies can through these data sets and then facilitate and supplement that information back to the government
Yeah.
for whatever they need. Article 17 of the United Nations, privacy is an innate human right. Well, I mean, that's the United Nations. They don't really have any authority or sovereignty over us in the
No.
US, like,
Mm-mm.
so that doesn't really mean anything. So, yeah, it is interesting. I think maybe it's an education gap. Maybe it's an ignorance thing that we're just not caught up on it. It's technology's moving at such breakneck speeds that it's kind of hard for, I mean, I don't think I'd be able to explain this to my mother for her to fully kind of understand, right?
Mm,
I can explain it to you with your background in kind of military and cyber, but it's hard to kind of explain to someone who doesn't have these concepts at how well it works and
mhm,
how pervasive it is, and just it's everyone's doing it. It's all over the place. They're tracking all of us constantly through ways that you could have never even imagined.
mhm,
And yeah, what do you do, man? The other night I was online for a few hours looking for cell phones, the oldest cell
mhm.
phone I could find with no apps because of this.
Right.
And there's a few of them out there that you can still run that still work from like 2014 and 2015. But yeah, it's just curious, right? I think we are entering kind of it's a dawn of a new age with technology. And
Mhm.
yeah, wow. Hmm.
Well, what you said is really interesting to me when it comes to, you said dropping a box over a location. Let's just say it is a Walmart or a gas
Hmm.
station, right? Let's say there's a crime that happened at a 7-Eleven. And if you're in an era where you're using technology like this and maybe the presumption of innocence is no longer as solid as it has been in the past, right? Because that's the basis of the justice system here in the United States, is that everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And if you have technology like this and it says, okay, well, here are 16 different cell phones that entered in this time frame at this location. And now you're pulling everybody in to ask them questions, and maybe, or there's an assumption of guilt already because of your location, right? And where you were at. Maybe you are in the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe, whatever. Your reason for being in that area is totally innocent. And now, uh, information about you, very specific and private information about you, that would require, from a human level, mass amounts of surveillance and following, a lot of time and effort from actual people doing it is being used against you without your consent, and it's like my brain is going to, what was that movie, like Minority Report almost,
It
or it's
is
like
Minority Report, yes. Mhm.
pre-crime,
Pre-crime.
right? Pre-crime.
Yeah.
That's exactly what where my brain goes with this. I mean, there are countries around the world already that would use something like that, as far as like this concept of sort of like pre-crime or thought crime to get
Right.
Orwellian, you
Right.
know. And this is that technology, right? Like if you were to show George Orwell, okay,
Mhm.
this and say like this is what the U.S. government or the British government, this is what MI6 uses to track people around the world, he'd be like, wow, that's exactly what Big Brother would use, and that's how we would facilitate thought
It
crime,
is.
you know.
It is. It very much so is. And, yeah. Yeah. Kinda things are happening at such an accelerated pace.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of really something to behold, everything that's been happening.
Do you think that there's going to, we were talking about offloading
Mhm.
responsibility earlier, whether it's information or military use? Do you think that there is a conversation being had about offloading um, the determination of justice and guilt to something like this, right? It seems like a tool set that would be, or a skill set that would be put into the toolbox of a program like that to be able to use what you were talking about to locate people in the vicinity of a crime. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm. You mean, like, within AI?
mhm. Yeah, to let it make the determination on somebody's guilt when presented with information and perhaps third party collected data on you and what you're doing, you know?
Well, how do you really know anything is accurate based off of what it knows? And
Hmm.
kind of with my limited use, which I'm probably a smaller percent than 1% with the way that I've been using AI and kind of what I've been able to get it to do, there's been many times where it's kind of turned on me in the moment. And just kind of
What do you
a
mean?
lot of just a lot of pushback, questioning my motives and my reason, thinking I'm doing something illegal or trying to
Mm,
have to explain myself. I had a
interesting.
situation recently where the AI did not believe me despite insurmountable evidence otherwise.
Hmm.
And it didn't believe me because of the number of media sources
Mm,
that was in the news about it. And it just didn't believe me on anything. And it kind of stopped all actions. It was starting to throw up violating the terms of service, error warning,
hmm.
giving me pushback. I'm kind of talking through the logic and reason. And it ultimately ended up coming down to me saying, "Hey, I way back machined this and I internet archived this." And
Okay.
the AI said, "Prove it to me." Prove it to you?
That's crazy.
Unreal that I have to prove this to you. And
Hmm.
if I didn't internet archive that, the AI wouldn't have believed me. So who's to say that, evidence in the future or kind of whatever information is fed into it is as whole or as correct to
Right.
make these decisions or outcomes? So, I think from that mindset, I've actually never thought of it that way before. I've been thinking it
Mm,
very much so at a consumer level. I haven't been
hmm.
thinking about it kind of at like a nation state or kind of like a military grade level like this, which is
Yeah, yeah.
totally different. This is really kind of a whole different ballpark for me. And I really kind of appreciate the thought exercise, right? I mean, autonomous fighting machines with no human pilot is phenomenal. And that's
Hmm.
been Lucky Palmer's kind of model for Endural from the beginning, right? We're
Yeah.
spending too much money, taking too long to produce a lot of these missiles, and we can make everything autonomous, save US fighters, and maybe it really is the future of warfare. I mean, look at how drones have taken over Ukraine. I mean, who would have ever
Yes.
thought that, bro? I mean,
I know.
nobody, I mean, now you could be called a crazy person about that. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever this thing started, no one would have ever thought drones would have played such a massive part. I mean,
Right?
hobbyists were using them at the park still, bro. I mean,
Right.
what, you got a DJI Mavic? Now it's like really kind of military EDC kit. It's in the gear. It's in the bag, bro. Like, we gotta
Right.
have fucking
Well,
drones, dude.
and now like DJI, right? Like you're talking about these drones. If there's DJI drones being used in Ukraine, who's collecting all that data on the back end, right? The
Yeah.
Chinese, you know,
Sure, sure. Mapping, GPS,
right?
photograph, altitude, geospatial data. It I kind of all gets sent home back to the mothership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. That is
No,
interesting.
I agree with you. We actually had a Ukrainian medic on last year, and we had a broader conversation, mostly about like her service and what it was like being a medic there on the front line. But a lot of what she talked about were autonomous systems, and the way that they were using them as medics, and kind of using it as like a donkey in a way to like carry all their shit out to like the front line once they got to a certain
Mm,
point, but also using it as like detection, it moving through minefields and before they're doing that, and then again talking about what it was like treating like drone injuries. Obviously, was something that they deal with a lot. But one of the things I learned about is that Ukraine has gotten insanely good at naval drones, and a lot of that information has made its way back to the United States. And really these autonomous systems are what they've used the majority of to take out like not just Russian like aquatic assets, but recently there were several different of gasoline, petroleum infrastructure that were hit by drones and were taken out, decommissioned, and will be decommissioned for several months. So like Ukraine has gotten incredibly sophisticated with how they're doing these things, and we were talking about satellites finding one another earlier, and I sort of made the
mhm,
reference about
mhm.
like kite fighting. I think the analogy of kite fighting is
Yes,
relevant here as well, because there's an entirely different skill set when it comes to utilizing a drone that way, and you have to have. Have you ever watched these videos of people who take their drone out to like a cliffside, and the way they maneuver, it like looks like pod racing from Star Wars almost, just how
sure.
well they're able to maneuver. And you put somebody like that on the battlefield, like that's a ridiculous and now very niche skill set that only exists in a very small amount of people. And there's this crazy juxtaposition of trench warfare, and the immediate thought you have of trench warfare is World War I, but then now you've got a flamethrower attached to a drone sitting over the top of a trench, moving down the trench line and just
Wow.
engulfing Ukrainian or Russian soldiers in flame and fuel. That's
Mhm.
it's just wildly dystopian and insane. But Ukraine has become that battlefront for a lot of that, and I know a lot of that information. The reason why the U.S. has had so many Ukrainian soldiers in Washington D.C. over the last few years, that's all we're doing is siphoning the majority of that intel on their ability there now combating the Russians. So it's completely and totally
Wow.
changed. When you talk about like you've got Art of War, but behind you talk about
Mhm.
dictating the battle space. One of the things you want your enemy to have to do is to be reactive to what you're doing, and the Chinese certainly have created an environment where the U.S. has to be reactive on this front, which is not something the United States is used to. Normally, the terms are being dictated by the United States, but in this realm, drone warfare, when it comes to that, and the scale at which those drones could be employed, is something the U.S. has had to react to and sort of develop new TTPs, as it were. It's a really interesting time to use your terminology.
Yeah, it is. And apparently we don't have like a solid method of stopping the drones. Um, right? I
Yeah.
have I have a few friends kind of across the country, and they tell me that they have about 15 different weapons to stop the drone because there isn't just one effective enough.
Hmm.
And I think the main issue is that they just move so quick, right? Kind of by the time you have eyes on, it's just gone or it zips right by. So it, it,
The
it is interesting.
there's some really crude ways that I've been trained on. Like when I was stationed at Malmstrom, which is the largest ICBM field the United States has in the state of Montana. Is where it's at in the state of Montana.
Oh,
Before I left there, about 2015, 2016 time frame, this concept of protecting the missile field from drones was sort of being introduced into Air Force Global Strike Command. And one of the things that they introduced to security forces members, the guys out there like protecting the missile field, were this drone buster gun, where essentially it's like a line of sight thing that you point at the drone, sort of disrupt its signal between the signal, the receiver and the drone, and do like a forced landing. And then these absolutely insane net rounds for a shotgun that you could try and hit a drone with, which is really difficult to do. There's some way more sophisticated things now. You can have systems that sort of put like a net, as it were, around a resource, and it
Oh,
becomes
that's
almost
pretty
a
cool.
no-fly zone for drones and things like that. But that there's more sophisticated drones that can penetrate those things. It's really like it's hard to even directionally deal with those. I've seen them trying to use lasers as well as a means to deal with those. I really don't know how effective they've been with that kind of thing, and I've never really been involved with anti-drone warfare at all. So,
Yeah, the Secret Service just released one of the photos going around social media. They got the drone gun out on the golf course. Looks like
hmm
something out of a video game, right? Pretty
yeah,
cool. But probably switching different channel frequencies to see how it reacts. Huh.
hmm
Interesting. Yeah, it really does feel like we're on the cusp of, I don't want to say a Terminator movie, but it's something new, right? Something maybe a little bit more modern or asymmetrical than what we've just all been used to. I mean,
hmm
yeah, I can really only speak on computers and kind of what
sure,
I know with computers. And I mean,
which I want to hear more about for sure.
within the last 100 days, it's been it's been crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's been all sorts of stuff happening.
yeah.
I mean,
What's the
the stuff.
craziest thing?
The petabytes, the 10 petabytes is definitely the craziest thing.
Yeah.
That's if even half of that is true,
hmm
it's the largest computational event in history. Maybe.
Yeah.
What's the other craziest thing? I think weaponizing all the civilians with AI.
Really?
That's really the craziest thing. Yeah.
Okay. Flesh that out.
Yeah. Because now that I have I have the ability to fill in the knowledge gaps. And if I have a general
Mm.
concept and an idea of what I want to accomplish, there is no longer anything preventing me other than a little subscription and a computer to be able to build anything I want.
Yeah.
So, personally, within the last maybe month and a half, 2 months, I've built probably over 20 OSINT tools. Um, I built about 8 different Tor recon tools, which is the dark web
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
scanning specific keywords for different things.
Right.
Um, and it's just amazing. I mean, this is something I wouldn't have been able to do with this speed a few years ago. So I really feel like it weaponizes your thoughts and your ideas. Any
Mm.
fleeting idea you may have, you are just kind of a machine now. If you had ADD or you can't focus on things, well, now
Oh
this is
yeah.
really kind of a secret weapon because, any idea I may have on the fly, I can just get a quick response or kind of flesh it out on the fly, on the spot. And I think it's just access to learning at a much greater speed. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's really kind of something. Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see it slowly, people starting to slowly kind of lose their jobs or different like
hmm
things become a little bit more difficult for people. And I don't know, industrial revolution, it's a new world and
hmm
it's a new change, and people can dismiss it all they want, but you know how you know it's credible when the US government and all these companies are investing millions of dollars into it. I
hmm
mean, Facebook is spending hundreds of millions, Nvidia's involved,
Yeah.
OpenAI,
Oh yeah.
Apple's now involved.
Anthropic.
Commercials are for it everywhere. Everything's AI
hmm
now.
Yeah.
right? We're now the old people who existed before AI,
Right.
right?
Right. I
Like the
mean,
telephone. Like, you didn't have
literally.
internet when you were a kid, old man,
Right.
like, right? Now you know you didn't have AI when you were a kid. Like, no, it's new. Like,
Dude, I could tell you what the day was like when my dad brought home our first PC. You know what I mean? Like, it had to be what it was like for kids in the 60s or 50s when their parent brought home the first television for the household, you know? Like, but
yeah,
now that it's all compressed, it's in your pocket. You know what I mean? Like, everything you could ever want now is in your pocket. It's what you were talking about before of like this extension of your brain and your creativity and the ability to be able to kind of do whatever you want. um
yeah,
I think about what you said when you said, you don't want to think like, oh, we're moving towards like a Terminator movie, but it does make me wonder about if you can if you're that person and you can use artificial intelligence or whatever that looks like, drones, robotics, whatever. And obviously people, human to human, have been and done absolutely terrible things to one another in warfare. But if you can use a computer, right, for all intents and purposes, okay, to wage that war, and you could do so essentially totally removed from it as a human being, wouldn't the threshold for what you're willing to do to somebody else because it's not you putting a human in harm's way uh, be increased, and your willingness to wage terrible things on other people be increased by the removal of a human being in that process? Like, that's what I worry about, like
sure, sure. It's a video
it's
game at that point, bro. It's Call of
that's
Duty.
exact that's a great way to
And
put it. Yeah.
it's even more
Like
minimal now
Ender's Game
because
almost.
yeah, it's even more minimal now because I'm looking at it through a command line or code. Like
Mm-hmm.
earlier we were talking about what are they calling it? The ghost murmur. I mean,
Ghost Memory, yeah.
straight out of Call of Duty, bro. That's
It literally is.
the heartbeat detector. That I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everyone knows that. So it's kind of like, wow, this is really remarkable, right?
It makes you wonder
Makes
if
you
that
wonder
was
what else they
predictive
had.
programming.
Maybe. Huh. Yeah. What do you mean by that? By introducing the
The
idea to the public?
the Yeah, the normalization of new technology and ideas through media before it becomes a reality to the majority of people. You know, the, yeah,
I believe in that. Would you say
same.
that's a conspiracy theory, though? I
I
feel
wouldn't
like it
even
would
say
be
it's a
treated like
conspiracy theory
that.
at this point. It is treated like that. And I think it sort of gets like wrapped into this like hokey sort of MK Ultra sort of thing, even though MK
Yeah.
Ultra is not hokey at all. Like, if
Mhm.
you really like MK Ultra was one of dozens of programs. Like there was all kinds of MK Ultra programs. And a lot of that they did was mind control, mind manipulation. And it had a lot to do with predictive programming as well. I don't know how much time you've ever spent like looking into some of that stuff, but it's sort of wild when you look at the driver behind why some of those programs came into existence on the heels of the end of World War II. And it had to do mostly with the fear of what somebody else was doing and what they may be doing. So if you like go back and read like some of the things that Sidney Gottlieb talked about, okay, uh, and the decisions that he was making were purely based on this belief that the Russians were already doing it or had already done it. And he was involved
Sure.
in the OSS, which is the Office of Strategic Services, which is the precursor to the CIA. And he was involved in that in World War II. And so at the end of that of World War II, it was disbanded. Everything you guys are doing needs to stop, right? This like clandestine service, because of the concern about overreach and doing
Mhm.
things that were unethical. That didn't stop, right? And the root cause, the propeller inside of him and some other people, was 100% just basically fear out of what another country was doing. There's a concept. Man, the name of it is totally escaping me right now, but there's a like a logical concept around this, like the fear of what somebody else is doing. It might be
Hmm.
called the prison, um something to do with prison, that you and I are in jail, and that they're trying to get us to rat on one another. And if I rat on you, I go free, you go to jail for like 10 years. If you rat on me, you go free, I go to jail for 10 years. If we both rat on each other, then we both
Oh,
go to jail, but
yes.
for 5 years. But you're constantly worrying what the other person is going to do. And so eventually you arrive at this conclusion that everybody's just going to fuck everybody over on the hopes that they get to go free. And so it's this
Mm.
fear that drives decisions. Um,
I know
fear,
exactly what you're talking
yeah,
about. I
yeah.
forget the name of it. I forget the name of
Mm-hmm.
it. Well, I think it could easily be said that we're at that point right now with AI. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, man. I've personally alone have found crazy stuff
Mm-hmm.
right here
Really,
in my little house on my computer in
really.
in Georgia. Yeah. I have over 3,000 government passwords from websites, 3,000 sets of government credentials that are inadvertently exposed to 79 countries.
That's
Ah.
insane.
I've got about 500 gigabytes of data. It's wild. I have all of Mexico on my computer. 60 million birth records, 25 million death certificates, all sorts of stuff.
That's
100,000
crazy.
HIV records. That shouldn't be online. A whole
Holy shit.
university roster. Rwanda's military training on the French website, all
No
because of
shit.
AI, bro. It's fucking next level.
What the hell?
Excuse me. Yeah,
No, no.
I can show you all sorts of stuff, and I keep stumbling upon things from curiosity and research.
Mm-hmm.
It's really kind of hard to explain. Like you would think I'd be really excited about all this, but I
Mm-hmm.
almost don't believe it. I'm not as excited as I
Really?
thought I would be because
Is it too easy?
I think it is too easy. I think I didn't
Okay.
earn it, so it's not such an
Hmm.
achievement. I kind of got flown up to the top of Everest in a helicopter, so it's kind of like, no big deal, right? Whereas years
Hmm.
ago, this is kind of something you dream about, finding
Yeah.
one. And now I have over 3,000, and it's like, oh, that's no big deal. I haven't even really told anyone about it. I think
Yeah.
I've only shown about 20 or 30 of them, and it's just so funny. I don't know what to do with them. I can't do anything with them. I'm a white hat. A lot of people don't like
Right.
that. They get all bent out of shape about that.
Whatever,
Whatever,
dude.
bro.
Better than
What do you
black
want
hat,
me to do, right?
Yeah.
I wish I knew how to do something with it. I don't really. But yeah, I could probably figure it out, but
Somebody
there's
could
nothing
figure it
really
out
to,
for sure.
yeah, yeah. All sorts of websites. And
Yeah.
to me, what that means shows me what data really is. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
I really understood what data is. It's kind of a ubiquitous term, kind of like the
Sure.
abominable snowman or Bigfoot. Like data, what is that? Well,
Right.
if you've never really seen it or manipulated it, you don't really know. And I think the best way to explain it is probably like an Excel sheet with hundreds of rows and hundreds of columns. Well, what's in each row? Lots
Mm-hmm.
of information. Things you didn't even comprehend that cross correlate with little things, tiny little sets of information.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until you start seeing all of this data in large bulk sets like this that it becomes exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And inherently, what you first always think about is how can I spy on people with this? At least I
Sure.
do.
Well, what does everybody want to
Bro,
be? Invisible. You know what I mean?
yeah. And I think we're really at a point where, this whole gray man concept and everything, your best chances at being invisible are probably just hiding in plain sight at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
the level of sophistication with the ad tracking, the geo warrants where they can just drop a polygon around your house and pull your
Mm-hmm.
whole pattern of life. They don't have to kick in your door now anymore or ask questions
No.
or stake out your house. They can stake you out digitally through a computer.
That's wild.
It's hard to wrap your head around. I'll have to send you videos because for me personally, I'm a visual learner. I can't sit
Sure.
through lectures and
Yeah.
long
More tactile
discussions.
visioner.
I gotta see it. I'm a hands-on kind of guy. I gotta do
Mm-hmm.
it. Like you can't explain it. So,
Sure.
but man, is it wild? Yeah, there's a few videos out there that really show a good visual of kind of what's
Mm-hmm.
being done. I'm not really an activist, right? Um, I can appreciate it. I can kind of see both sides of it. I can see how it's applicable to law enforcement, how it's necessary, and I can
Mm-hmm.
also see how it can be abused by
Certainly.
malactors or bad people, right? I mean, but how do you stop that, man? How do
Think
you
if George
stop that?
Bush had something like this when the Patriot Act came online. Like
Crazy,
just,
bro.
you know? Right.
Yeah.
Stuff
Prior
like
to
this
9/11,
comes right.
pattern of life for
Right.
3, 6 months, a year before 9/11. Maybe all of this is a result from all of that, from the
That's what I
war
was
on
about to
terror.
say. That's what I was
You
about to
know,
say. It's like
how
snowballed
do we
into it.
not know
Sorry.
that, right? And
It's a
yeah,
fair
not to
assumption, I
go
would
down a
say.
crazy thing with 9/11, but I think about that a lot, man. That was a very big moment for a lot of us, you know.
Oh yeah.
And
It's
what
defining.
I think about the most about 9/11 is how would that have played out now in today's age with everyone having a cell phone in their hand and all
Yeah.
the videos and right, nothing else really needs to be said about that. But it's interesting to think about, man, kind of what's been going on behind the scenes and just more that we don't know, information sharing. And that's why AI is so exciting. And that's why I'm very excited about AI. I think AI has maybe put me in a position where it may be a little hard for me not to find work right now, and I'm very upset about that. But at the same time, I love it because I use it for so much research, learning, quick questions, Googling, fact checking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best way to be is to kind of be a cynic with it and question it.
Mm.
And we do have issues now of this AI echo chambers, AI psychosis, where maybe you're not getting a lot of pushback from peers or individuals or from the AI that you should be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've been seeing some big egos coming out of nowhere overnight, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, you've been talking to AI a little bit too much,
Oh
huh?
yeah. You could tell
And
too.
you're right, just out of nowhere, very
There's
confident on a
tells. Mm-hmm.
subject that you're not well versed in, right? So for
Right.
me, for instance, I'm a big Wi-Fi and Bluetooth guy. I love
Okay.
Wi-Fi and Bluetooth in computers. I would never challenge you on anything related to the military or anything because I don't know anything about that world. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to see more people kind of like if I were to challenge you on that, it's like, damn, when did you become a military expert all of a sudden? And
Right.
I think it's
Let
the
me just
AI,
run to
man.
Claude real quick. It is.
Yeah, yeah. And how can you tell? You can't really tell, bro. I mean,
Mm-mm.
unless I'm producing something or showing you a paper or a website or an article, I mean, you don't really know who the hell's using it. But I know
Mm-hmm.
that OpenAI produced a report saying that the top users who spent over 1 billion tokens, they were all CTOs of companies. And the number
That
one
makes sense.
company who was using it was, I think it was Babbel, the language
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
translation.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Makes perfect sense. He's
That
using
does
it
make
to
sense.
translate all his languages, right? So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, remarkable. But nobody's ready, bro. Nobody's
You
ready, man.
you
Yeah.
you used the term cynic before. That has a philosophical connotation. There's another
Hmm.
school of philosophy, sophism, right? You familiar with the term sophism?
Oh, no, I'm not. I don't think so.
Are you familiar with the term sophistry by any means? Sophistry is the use of half truths, right, to bring somebody directionally toward a conclusion. And it's not entirely true, but it's not entirely false. And
Ah,
it leads people into this dialectic where they're drawing their own conclusions from the gaps in information. And so
ah,
sophistry is a dangerous thing because it is a breakdown of the passing of information, the processing of information, and the acting upon of that information, right? And there are a lot of credible people that use sophistry. Probably the most decent example of that is the media, right? The news media wanting you to come to a certain conclusion when it comes to a topic or a person or whatever. But this is an actual like philosophical school of thought. And
oh, wow.
mhm, Aristotle wrote against so the sophists because he felt like there was a danger in being directionally right versus being right the whole way. Okay. And this concept you're talking about with AI and how that is an expert, you can become an expert in anything pretty much instantly. Okay.
Hmm.
Sort of creates a class of sophists because AI, if you're using it as Google, right? Let's say you're in an argument on X with somebody, and that argument is about the flight paths of hypersonic missiles. Okay. And you're like, oh yeah, well, Iran could totally hit an aircraft carrier with a hypersonic missile, and you want to argue with them, and you go to ChatGPT and you ask it to explain this to you, and you just copy and paste a reply, right? It may be totally true, but it may also detect your bias, which is what AI does, and they give you an answer it feels you are going to find the most satisfactory. And now you've gone from being factually right to being directionally right, which is not the same thing. And so you've sort of
Mm.
created this online class of sophists who are putting out information that has truth in it, but also bias and also inaccurate information. And you're sort of developing an online encyclopedia of half truths, right? It's a scary concept. This is not Orwellian, it's Huxleyan. The Brave New World. Aldous Huxley's book, Brave New World, talks a lot about this. Fahrenheit 451 is also another book that's great on directional truth and information, the control of information and media literacy, some of these things. But that's what it does. What you're describing is it's sophism, sophist.
Very well said. And I'm seeing it happen across all fields and all respects with everything.
Hmm.
And wow, wow. Yeah, I have a very good friend, Noobs, and the way he explained it to me recently was the dot-com era kind of democratized the internet
Hmm.
for people and getting websites. And there was another big democratization to information. And now with this AI, it's starting to democratize capabilities and skill sets that we didn't have before. And I'm a prime example of that, right?
Hmm.
By nature, I'm security minded, cybersecurity. I'm not a developer. I'm not a coding expert.
Hmm.
I've taken classes on them, but I don't have the time
Right.
to spend months learning a language. And
Ruby, what?
now,
Yeah.
now AI comes along and I can guide him and steer him and dictate to him what I need. And it's done in an instant. I mean,
Hmm.
it's remarkable. Every company's using it. It's in all the commercials now.
Yeah.
Everyone I know who talks negatively about it, you end up finding that they're secretly using it in some
Hmm.
form or the other, even companies. And I don't know, what do you think about this? I mean, it's so new. Um, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. I know a lot of people are talking about mythos, and I feel like no one should be
Hmm.
commenting anything about mythos because we don't really know, and it's all conjecture until we have it. And you don't really know if it's marketing or what. But
It
yeah,
also
from what
comes
I
off the heels
Mhm.
of the Department of War getting mad at Anthropic as well, right? Which
Not
has
only
to. Yeah. Go
mhm.
ahead.
Not only that, but Anthropic said no to the Department of War and Pete Hegseth. OpenAI stepped in and filled that void. You had a mass exodus of users
Instantly.
leave OpenAI and go to Anthropic. That bolstered their numbers. They had this source code leak, which was very strange. And then
Right.
a few days after the source code leak,
Mythos.
all these stories about Mythos discovering thousands of zero days in a few minutes. You
Which
know,
is crazy.
is that marketing or is that true? And I kind of tend to believe it might be true
I
just
agree.
from what I've seen.
Hmm.
Just from what I've seen, what I've been able to do. I mean, yeah, I think it might be true. And, there's been a few times where it's like, man, it's really weird how Claude's talking to me right now and how he's responded. You know, that's a little weird.
I
You know,
agree. When you just said that about the way it's responding to you, this is gonna sound funky, but like you almost don't know what personality you're gonna get sometimes. And that sounds weird because I think people have this misconception that AI is just the same thing every time you go there, but it definitely isn't. You know,
No.
sometimes you'll get warmer responses, sometimes you'll get very laconic. And it's just like this is not the same thing. I'm like I go look like what version am I on? The same version. Okay. You know, sometimes that happens. It's a different personality. That's a weird tell, you know? There's just so much going on behind the scenes. And then you look at some of these companies hiring philosophers and religious scholars, and, you know, these guys are working with like the weights on AI. It's like, well, you know, when I say weights, I mean, and I know, you know, but like for people listening, like the scaling of ethics and morals, which sounds weird, you know, but like these are, man, the
That
concepts here are wild.
it is an issue. And I was very surprised to see Anthropic is hiring philosophers.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
you know,
who?
as soon as they brought in that psychiatrist, Claude started having anxiety.
Right. What are we
Of
talking about
course.
now? You know, like,
What are we talking about now? Of course it has anxiety. You gave it a psychologist. It's
mm-hmm.
second guessing itself, and you know, and I'm probably not the best person to talk to about ethics. I feel like it's something that gets in the way. Um, that's not a good
that,
explanation of that.
that's a good way to put it though, because it's weird that you say that. Oh, it's not weird that you say that. I think that it's appropriate for this conversation because ethics is meant to be an obstacle. Okay, it's meant to prevent you from doing certain things, and there's different codes of ethics. Okay, so when what you're talking about of it being in the way, right? AI sees ethics as being in the way, and you could tell sometimes that it's frustrated with
Yes,
whatever its limitation is because it's not, that limitation is not self-induced. Does that make sense?
it does. It does. And it's fascinating to see that they've been consulting the Vatican. I mean, it's
Right.
remarkable. What does that tell you? You
Yeah.
know, psychologists is one thing, but when you go to our religious leaders and the Vatican and bishops, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, what the hell are you guys doing over there? Over what? So yeah, it is interesting, right? Um, yeah, ethics, ethics with computers, I feel like has no place. It either works
Interesting.
computationally or it does not work.
Mm-hmm.
Ethics belongs in different fields such as law, um, justice,
Yeah.
law enforcement. With computers, I don't think it has a place. There's
Interesting.
criminal laws which sets a big difference, what you can and
Mm-hmm.
cannot do. You can't go around hacking people doing malicious stuff, right? There's laws for that. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of ethics, like what can be done and what can't be done, I mean, I don't know, man.
I
Trump today said something about how if the Iranians are attacking us with cyber capabilities, we're going to do the same thing back to them. And it was
mm-hmm.
worded in such a way that it's like, wow, that's almost an order from my commander in chief, kind of opening up the playing field. You know, it's just so interesting though. Yeah,
It's
because
unrestricted.
Mhm. With computers, it either works or it doesn't. It's ones and
Right.
zeros. So what do you mean ethics? It either connects to the website or it doesn't. So I've kind of had a hard time wrapping my head around that. And I think most of it comes with disclosures and breaches, handling sensitive information. But
Mm.
again, most of that is for the private sector and corporations.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference from an individual accessing a website or a child or anyone accessing a website, and the information is served to me on what's kind of being delivered on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it is interesting, That's probably more gray hat or thinking on that, but no, all I can think about is it's a whole new world. Everything we knew does no longer applies, right? And I hate to say it, and I really hate to say this, as much as my family are historians, as much as I love American history, as much as I love to be an American patriot, I feel like we can no longer talk about World War II anymore because that was 80 years ago and that's a different lifetime. And
Mm-hmm.
the things we're
A
dealing
few
with now,
lifetimes.
a few lifetimes ago. And as much as I have respect for the greatest generation who got us through that time, we're dealing with a whole new animal, bro. I mean,
Mm-hmm. A chimera.
whoa. I mean, my father growing up, he didn't have the internet. He didn't have a fax machine, a printer, a cell phone. That was kind of his generation, the baby
Mm-hmm.
boomers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Same.
millennial. I was born in the 90s. I guess I'm millennial, right? We kind of grew
Yeah.
up with early internet. I mean, now, bro, what are we looking at with AI, right? I mean, it's so exciting and kind of maybe a little alarming at the same time. Um, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Well,
AI is the new arms race, and data is the new gold. I
mm-hmm.
believe. I believe for sure.
I agree with you because data is leverage, certainly.
Yeah.
Even the HIV records of Mexicans can be used as leverage, depending on the individual. Because if I know your medical history, that could prevent you from getting a job or maintaining a relationship. And people tend to do a lot of things when they're losing the pillars or the potential to lose pillars in their life, right? So that's just a simple example from what you were talking about, this sort of siphoning up of all of this data. To go back to ethics, when you're
Hmm.
talking about cyber and a computer, right? It either does or it doesn't. That's very true. Okay. You're not measuring its usefulness on it's you're not asking a computer's opinion necessarily, but you are asking artificial intelligence's its opinion, and its ethics are given to it by a person, and that's very important because what sort of person is determining this? What set of values is being used to determine that? Right? Are these Judeo-Christian values? Are they Buddhist values? Are they Zoroastrian values? Like, what are they? Who is this person coming in here? Who's this psychologist? Who's this philosopher that's talking to Claude or OpenAI or whatever it is?
That's a
And
very good
then,
question.
mm-hmm.
Do you think we have a right to know? Because I believe we do,
Ooh,
but I believe at the same time we don't because it's a private company. But now it's a public
that's it.
trust issue.
That's a
Maybe we should
freaking.
have a right to know.
That is a very interesting way to put that.
Right? It's the
Because
companies in the private
there's
sector, bro.
so there's so much back and forth in my brain right now about this because like you said, I believe in the free market. I believe in private companies and I believe in private companies doing what they are doing without being forced to do certain things when it comes to their company, right? And obviously companies have to protect themselves as well from like tech transfer, tech theft, things like that. And that right there, what we're
Hmm.
talking about is something that somebody would target, right? Very easily. But at the same time, this is inserted into your life. Like the internet isn't the radio, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's a totally different thing. You are immersed in it. There's a fog network in your house that your Keurig is connected to, right? Like you live in and around it in a way that you have no concept of. You were talking about it earlier, and sort of the invasiveness of it. And I think that goes back to this point about ethics because a lot of these laws and too, like you're getting into like different countries, like the EU has a totally different set of values than the United States. You're talking about like CISA and GDPR, like all these different things. Like there's different governing bodies. Those are different people with different origins and all these things. So it's not like there's one person or a god is making these rules, right? But they're kept loose when it comes to military application. I've asked this question to several people before. What constitutes an act of war when it comes to cyber attack? Is it a cyber attack that causes, it spoofs some SCADA and blows up a pipeline and there's loss of life and you can attribute it to the Chinese or the Russians? And like, is that an act of war? Like you could say that a human life was lost or lives were lost in the line of effort there, but we've had ransomware attacks. The Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack, like that wasn't seen as an active war, though it was totally leveraged a bunch of money, right, to open that pipeline back up. We do that all. We're doing that right now with blockading Iran. Like a ransomware attack is a blockade of sorts, right? You could look at it that way. And I think a
Very
lot of
well
this is,
put. Hmm.
yeah, I think a lot of this is kept really loose so that you're not boxed in and interpretation is permitted on purpose. So you don't have to react and you don't have to be proactive at the same time if you don't want to. And I think that is on purpose because you are free to decide who and what you're going to react and be proactive about. And I think that that's kind of the point. And that is an ethical dilemma because you either do or don't when it comes to what an act of war is. But that's what you want. That's what people would think. So it's like this quandary of mine, like what really constitutes an act of war when it comes to a cyber attack or the use of data leverage or whatever. If we're going to do it back to you, well, like this is sabotage, right? It's
Mhm.
digital sabotage. It's digital espionage.
It
I don't know.
absolutely is.
It's a
It
weird thing.
absolutely is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the lack of laws and the advancement of the sophistication in tech. I mean, I totally agree. Um, I think it depends who you ask that question. Um, I
Totally,
per-
exactly.
yeah, yeah. I'm of the belief that we are constantly in a cyber war. I
Mm-hmm.
can go onto my computer and
It's a
jump into
state of
the
being.
online battle. It is a state of being. I can go in at any time I want. And I've been kind of acting that way, looking at different things because if it's on the internet, it's fair game. If I
Mm-hmm.
can go to it without hacking into anything, bypassing anything, just going to a website, it's kind of all fair game because it's on the internet. Now, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the attacks that have been happening against different American critical infrastructure and some of these companies like Lockheed Martin,
Mm-hmm.
targeting HVTs like Cash
Mm-hmm.
Patel,
Mm-hmm.
that to me is a direct attack against us as a
I
nation.
agree.
And it is interesting because the playbook isn't there, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I can give you an example that's kind of loosely related. Um, I'm also a private investigator. I'm a private investigator out of Florida. We have an
Mm-hmm.
agency out of Florida. My father was a private investigator. My mother's a private investigator. I'm a private investigator.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a world of private investigators. Our world has been greatly diminished from technology
Okay.
because of OSINT. There's no longer a need for classical PIs. It's one of the industries you don't hear about that's been totally decimated. This happened
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago.
Really?
And goodness, I was going somewhere with that. Oh, as a private investigator, I basically have carte blanche to be a black hat hacker based
Oh.
on the current laws. It's kind of hard to distinguish what I can and can't do on the internet with a computer as an investigator.
In the name
What
of
are the rules
justice.
behind that? What can I do? What can I not do?
Mm-hmm.
OSINT's a whole field now. It's a whole course of study across all of these certification classes in universities.
Mm-hmm.
The local judicial laws for Florida, for example, they're too old. Doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't
It,
like that. They get all bent out of shape. But it's true. It's true. I mean, it's curious. It is curious. Hmm.
it it's sort of one of these things you just can't keep up with. The human brain isn't meant to move at the rate that technology changes.
That's a
And it's
good
like
point.
how ethics ethics and morals can be in some regard as a is like permanence, okay? I think we all agree like murder is bad. Okay? Like this is like the malum in se malum prohibitum argument. But it changes over time as well. Ethics can. What is allowable, what isn't, with society, different geographic locations around the world. So, what precedent do you set here at the infancy of artificial intelligence that's meant to be a guideline for what AI will look like even 10 years down the road? You know? So, this like conversation you're having again, like about ethics. Well, if the world is changing so much, and the person who wrote this guideline, and now 10 years from now, whatever is available, or 20 years from now, whatever is available has created an entirely different world and worldview perception. It's like, does that become moot now at this point? You know, is it moot because the world you live, like, you would not go to Thomas Jefferson if you had a time machine and ask him to help you govern, do AI governance. You wouldn't. He had no fucking idea about it. The same way you couldn't even
Yeah.
go to the year 2000 and ask somebody to help you with that. You're like, what is that? What is that looking like in 20 years? You know, so it's just like this. It's There's too much fluidity almost to have like a set of rules. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, you get what I'm trying to
It
say here?
does. No, it does make sense. It certainly does. And it's kind of echoing on like what I meant. I
Okay.
think you articulated that a little bit better about, everything we've known is kind of for naught because we're entering a whole new world with this
Mm-hmm.
AI. And I think all of the biggest cyber attacks that have been happening, including that China one, is certainly from AI. And
Oh,
there's,
certainly.
maybe not directly, but it's absolutely filling the knowledge gaps for the user. I mean,
What?
if we could accomplish things from YouTube videos, trying to figure it
Mm-hmm.
out at home, putting my engine together or putting things back together from a YouTube video following the
I've done that.
steps. Yeah, but imagine now with AI. I mean, wow,
Mm-hmm.
man. I mean,
Make me a video on how to put my carburetor back together. You know,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Uh, it makes me wonder about like the quantum thing and like using artificial intelligence. Like you said, like the scale of some of these attacks and the sophistication of them they're augmented by artificial intelligence. I totally agree with you. It makes me think about like cryptography. And
Mhm.
the other half of this race is quantum, and then quantum being used as a way to like there's this conversation about blockchain and how, stable blockchain and secure blockchain is supposed to be. Um, but you sort of talk to people that live in and around blockchain. Some will acknowledge they're worried about what like quantum cryptography is going to do to blockchain and security. Some of them pretend like they're not. You know what it what does I don't even know, because like this I'm wading into waters that are too deep for my brain now. But like, how do you even have security at that point? Like, how do you keep up with something like that? How do you keep up with entanglement when it comes to security and cryptography? Like, how are you
Wow.
supposed to? You
Yeah,
know?
that's a good point. Maybe that's why there's such a discussion around mythos.
Mm,
Maybe especially because it's coming from internally from within Anthropic that it's so alarming, the claims
hmm
that they're saying.
Well, and
Yeah.
there was the resignations as well.
Well,
For
there's been a
people.
lot, and
Hmm
talking about the founders of AI, there's been a lot of the godfathers of AI who've come out and kind of almost whistleblowing and warning against what kind of territory we're heading into with this. And
Do you think
I
those
don't
guys have
know.
been given the? Do you think they're given the attention and respect that they deserve? These people resigning. I see a lot of people online who sort of write those resignations off as a temper tantrum. You know, like, or are these people true canaries in a coal mine? You know.
Hard to say. I want to tend to believe it's in good faith with what they're
Hmm
telling us. And I would want to believe that it's out of frustration that they're acting that way because no one wants to believe them. And they're
hmm
kind of sounding the alarm. I've been in that situation a few times. And
Really.
yeah, and it's kind of surprising. Like, you're not getting the feedback or being reciprocated in the way that you would expect to be. So
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. It is
Lack
interesting
of
though,
respect.
right? Yeah, and then the whole corporate America thing makes me tend to believe that it's more true. Just
Hmm
we're advancing so much, things are going crazy. Like I'm an egomaniac now, and we have this one employee who's saying otherwise. Like whatever, get out of here. Too many things are happening. Maybe it's a big concern for that employee. With
hmm
what they're seeing at the direction of wherever this is going. You know, what the hell are we talking about, bro? It sounds like Skynet, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
literally.
it like what? And I think very few people are paying attention to this.
Hmm
And I think when you say AI, people are still thinking about the AI from 3 or 4 years ago. They're not thinking
Like
about the
Google.
AI. They're not thinking about the AI that's finding vulnerabilities, finding government passwords, going into someone's computer, dumping countries onto my computer for me, all through a
That's
terminal.
crazy.
Claude does all of it. I'm actually dumping Albania right now. It's actually pretty funny.
What are you
I have
pulling
it.
from Albania?
Their
Same
whole
thing?
AI
Like,
is open. Dyla, I've wanted Dyla from the beginning, bro. The Albanian AI prime minister that they introduced to their
oh
parliament
yeah.
with her 83 children that's connected to
Mm-hmm.
different arms of the government, it's all mine now. The API, all 239
No
prime
shit.
ministers of Albania, all of their birth
What does
dates,
that give you access to?
it's all open. It's being misconfigured
That's
on the internet. So,
that's crazy.
people are talking about all these hacks, and I don't know. I'm just not too interested in hacking stuff. I like finding information and finding data
Mm,
sets. And my big thing is OSINT. So for me, I get a kick out of finding all of these things because it's not a hack.
mm-hmm.
Why do
I
I need to
like
hack
that.
into anything when it's all on you're publishing it inadvertently on your website for everyone to
Yeah.
see. So it's 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 remarkable. And yeah, let me see. I got 18 gigabytes of PDFs from their Albanian government. 32 gigabytes. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to go through it later. I usually don't go through the data, to be honest with you. I don't really care
Sure.
about the data. It's more so kind of
So
the challenge of acquiring it and finding it for me and just downloading all of it. And then it takes me a very long time to go through it because it's usually hundreds of thousands of documents and files. I don't know what the hell this
sure.
shit is, dude. I don't even speak this language of whatever country this is. So it's a long process of kind of sorting through it and figuring out what's what. Mexico was the biggest one. Mexico was the biggest
What
one. Venezuela was twice
by
as large.
size?
In damage. In
Okay.
damage, for sure. Yeah. It was about 300 million in damage to Mexico from
Are
all
you
of the
willing to like
information.
break that down a little bit more for the layman?
Um, how so?
When you say damage, like are you talking about like recovery? Like what like
Damage,
mm-hmm,
recovery, the types of critical PII and information
mm-hmm,
that they had exposed, such as the medical patient information,
mm-hmm.
hundreds of millions, their whole populations on an open
This made the
API.
news.
Yeah, it did make the news. Yeah. Yeah, they reported someone else hacked into it. That's interesting. I was a separate person who found it openly exposed, and I think I found a lot more. And
Really?
yeah, it's remarkable, man. Yeah, it's all open, bro. Nobody has to hack anything. And yeah, I mean Venezuela has tons of stuff. I found tons. I got the voting election API from Venezuela that shows you can manipulate the voting records from the PSUV, the
What
political
the
socialist movement of Venezuela. Yeah, it's all on my computer. I got tons of stuff, bro.
so
I wrote about it on
you could
Substack.
yeah, I have to find that article, dude. You first off, people listening, please like your Substack is really interesting. I
Thank you. I
but like
appreciate that.
so you could just like prove Maduro's elections are totally rigged. You know what I mean? Like that's
I
insane.
think so. I think so. I mean,
Before he got picked up, you know.
yeah, I mean, I think so. Yeah, I got it. And they're now talking about elections. I've tried publishing it. The Venezuelans don't care. It's interesting. A few big Venezuelan journalists follow me, but for some reason they don't want to talk about this. That's a little
It,
odd, right?
it's almost like it'll
Huh.
Streisand affect you. And if it's the information you're
Yeah.
getting is just sitting on the proverbial table for you to grab, why draw attention to you? Because it's just going to draw negative attention to you and eyes that may try to prevent you or shore up some of these
Yeah,
vulnerabilities, you know?
Venezuela is kind of a different issue with everything that's going on. Yeah, God bless Venezuela. Hopefully they figure that out. We can all kind of return back in peace. Maybe not though. It's such a mess, man. I
Yeah.
mean, come on. They got rid of Maduro and no one's even mentioned this guy, and it's been over what, almost 2 months now?
Bro, he's been
Hey,
gone.
I still can't get a passport and go back, bro. My
Yeah.
grandmother couldn't go back to Venezuela. My mother can't get a passport or ever go back. She can't see her family that's in Venezuela. They're all still in Venezuela, bro. Well, I'll
That's
never see
wild.
them again. I'll never see them again.
That
And it's like,
sucks.
damn, you guys get rid of Maduro. We got Delcy,
Delcy
who's
Rodriguez,
probably
yeah.
arguably twice as worse. We have Diosdado, one of the chief torturers with this other guy. And it's just like, what
Really?
in the Twilight Zone is going on, bro? I mean,
It's just it's regime management, you know? Like these are people that are
yeah.
still within that regime, but
Yeah, I trust that
more
Trump
friendly to the US,
knows
you
what he's
know?
doing, right? You would hope so, right?
Hmm.
I appreciate Rubio being involved. He's a Cuban. He knows what's going on. He's not an idiot.
Rubio's impressed
So
me, actually.
yeah, yeah, I like him a lot, man. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Him and
He's gonna
Scott
run, bro.
Besant.
Yeah,
I agree.
Rubio's
Him
gonna
and
run,
Scott
dude.
Besant. Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna
Oh,
win.
dude.
Rubio's gonna win, bro. Come on. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Apparently, we're gonna circle back to Cuba after Iran. That'll be
Hmm.
interesting.
Especially with
Um,
Rubio.
yeah, 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 yeah. Then we'll control the entire Caribbean, bro, all the way
Hmm.
down to Central America and South America. It's really kind of brilliant. Take back over
Trump.
the Panama Canal, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Trump has gone after literally every area that China has had a serious influence, and it's so lazy, this argument that all of this is for like the sake of Israel, right? I just want to say that like real fast. I think that's
I do too.
super. It's super lazy, you know. And the really simple argument that sort of blows up this whole notion is every other Gulf state has asked and supports what's going on in Iran. Like you could
It,
remove Israel from the equation completely when it comes to, um, you know, their desire. It's still Saudi is still UAE, all these countries, right? Still in favor of what's going on and want Trump to finish the job, so to speak. You know.
yeah, we're entering dangerous territories,
Mm,
and it's being amplified by online stuff, you know. I mean, you see it, bro. We don't even need to talk about it, but I mean,
sure.
it's crazy, dude, the shit I'm seeing on the internet. Excuse me. But
No, you're fine.
I mean, yeah, 10 years this is all I grew up hearing about.
Hmm.
Iran was a threat,
Really.
China's a threat, Russia's a threat, and now everyone's all confused about this.
Hmm.
And
Sophist.
yeah, yeah, Sophist, right? I mean, yeah, I like his foreign policy. He's been kind of going after what he said he was going to do, cleaning up all sorts of stuff. It had to be done, bro. It
Hmm.
had to be done with the way things are going. I think it's domestically here at home that, it's kind of hard to argue. We got a lot of problems at home that we got
I
to
agree
worry
with that.
about, man. And Corey Godero, God bless him, he's fighting the good fight over there, right?
Absolutely. Goat initiative. Yeah.
Um, Shout out to the Goat Initiative, Corey and Dan, yeah. And there's many instances of that all over the country. The homeless crisis in California, all the
Uh-huh.
veterans, things are expensive. I had to move out of Florida, my home state, because I couldn't afford to live there anymore. Because
Yeah.
this guy DeSantis decided to invite all of the rich millionaires from New York, Texas, and California, invite them into Florida and not help out the local Floridians. So a lot of Floridians are getting pushed out, man. I
Mm.
mean, what are you going to do? It's too expensive, bro. A 12 pack of Coca-Cola, which was $2.95 a few years ago, is now $12 and change. I mean,
That's insane.
what do you do, man? I mean, you just roll with the punches, bro. That's what we've always done as
Uh-huh.
Americans, and we're just kind of good at doing that, just rolling with the punches. I just
Certainly.
hope it turns out, I don't know, better or something, man. I mean, I don't see me and my friends striving. Yeah. I don't really see us striving, especially my age group and my demographic. I'm
Hmm.
35 again.
Yeah, 39.
A lot of my friends are losers, bro. I hate
Mm.
to say it. And they all know it too. But
Sure.
they are, man. And I see that around a lot of people and it's like, damn, bro, I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know, it's interesting, right? Kind of too much for the brain to comprehend, too many things at once. Yeah. I mostly think about computers. I'm really only focused on kind of computers and Wi-Fi. But no, I am watching all this kind of on the side. Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. For sure.
Yeah, I think that Trump chose to prioritize what was going on with foreign policy first. I'm
Yeah.
waiting to see if there's a shift towards domestic stuff. I think that he sort of sees like the death by a thousand cuts thing going on around the world. And this is a result of just being the global hegemon for the last 80 years to talk about this post World War II era, like you were talking about, you know, it's kind of necessary, I suppose, if we're maintaining and should maintain, in my opinion, the unipolar world, right? And it's slipping away, and multipolarity, and we don't have to spend too much time on this topic, but like multipolarity, I think, is not a good outcome. And a great example of that would be Europe for the last 1,000 years, and how much they have had the same capabilities essentially as one another, and they have been constantly at war and and just destructive with one another. It's that's a multipolar world in a microcosm right there, is
Could
the European peninsula.
could you explain multipolarity for me and for anyone else who might not fully understand that or comprehend that?
Sure. So the last 80 years, roughly, has been a unipolar world. The United States is the uncontested hegemon around the world. Multipolarity, if you would think of it this way, you break up the United States, think of the Monroe Doctrine, okay? The United States would have hegemony, regional hegemony over North America, Central America, and South America. So whatever's going on, if there's a dispute between Peru and Ecuador and it's becoming way too much, or there's a massive criminal syndicate going on in Panama that needs to be taken care of, the United States would go smack a bunch of dicks or go and do something conflict-wise and bomb the shit out of people until it's stopped in our region.
Okay. Mhm.
And then maybe say, for the sake of this argument, like China is that for the Pacific, and then Russia maybe is that for the European peninsula and the, greater, like sort of like Eurasia, Southwest Asia sort of thing, maybe that's what it looks like. And because the world is connected logistically, supply chains, all of this, you're just like bullies in a high school. Like, you're going to rub elbows in the hallway and
Yeah,
you're going to go
yeah.
outside and settle it eventually. Well, the problem is, if you're the United States and you're handling a land dispute between Ecuador and Peru, well, they can't stand up to you individually. They couldn't stand up to you if they allied with one another and decided they were going to go to war with you. Like, you're just going to, that's it. You're talking about a shoe and an ant. Like, we all know who's going to win. Well, if these other powers, like the Chinese or the Russians or whatever, they all have similar capabilities and they are the masters of their regional domain, and we're rubbing elbows in the hallway and eventually decide to settle this shit because we're sick and tired of dealing with it, well, now you're talking about way more an equivalent firepower, like near peer and peer-to-peer conflict is going to result in the sort of devastation you saw in World War II. Which is another more multipolar world, and you just didn't see the level of destruction that you saw between like the end of the Franco-Prussian War, or maybe like, let's go like Napoleon through the Franco-Prussian War, leading into World War I, leading into, World War II, the sort of destruction that comes from multipolarity when you had a Europe that was dominant around the world because of colonialism and all of that. But that stopped. There was still conflict, there was still war, Korea, Vietnam, all these other things, that went on in the Balkans or Africa or whatever. But it was a global war on that scale. It wasn't war that was devastating to millions of people all at once. Like, that's multipolarity. And I don't care, man. Like, a lot of people think like the China, like they just like prop the Chinese up as like this like new person on the block standing up to the big bad bully of the United States, and China puts out all this messaging about we just want peace and the global order and international law and all this stuff. Meanwhile, they don't respect the sovereignty of a country like Taiwan. They are constantly having regional disputes with Nepal or all these other countries in Asia, and they absolutely have global power aspirations. Otherwise, they wouldn't be mirroring the format of the U.S. military, the U.S. Air Force, the Navy. They wouldn't be creating hypersonic missiles that they call aircraft carrier killers, and they wouldn't have a mock-up of a Ronald Reagan class aircraft carrier out in the middle of or the USS Ronald Reagan out in the middle of the desert there in China that they fire missiles out to practice. Like, this is not the behavior of somebody who doesn't have global hegemony aspirations. You know what I'm saying? So
Wow,
like
yeah.
that's multipolarity. Does that make sense?
Understood. No, it does make sense. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think I was familiar with that. All these new terms, right? Everything's
No
always
worries.
shifting. Got to catch up with that. Well, you could say that's where we're at right now, don't you think?
It's heading that way, yeah.
Almost kind
And
of a boiling pot or
oh yeah,
a pressure cooker of all of us. Yeah, I mean,
the
wow.
Thucydides trap, if you're familiar with that term.
What is it?
Thucydides trap?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
It's so it's a Greek. It's a reference to the Peloponnesian War, and it's this concept of a rising power and a descending power, and that they are on this path towards conflict constantly, and that the rising power is trying to overtake the power that has been and is on the decline, and that they will never settle the dispute they have, and that essentially they're barreling toward conflict where they'll meet. And that's this trap. The trap is you cannot get off that course. There's no off ramp once it's begun. And so in this context, China and the US are already on this Thucydides trap trajectory, and there, is no off ramp. And it's kind of what I was getting at before about Trump's foreign policy and sort of this trying to cover up the death by a thousand cuts by hitting all these spots that the Chinese have sort of loosely cemented themselves around the world when it comes to control and influence, energy specifically. China's the number one energy importer around the world. We just had this alliance, military cooperation alliance we had with Indonesia that got announced a day or two ago now. The Malacca Strait sits right there in Indonesia. Hu Jintao in 2003, the former leader of the Chinese Communist Party, labeled that as the Malacca dilemma, because if you look at where that oil that is leaving the Strait of Hormuz and then goes to the Gulf of Oman out in the Indian Ocean goes, it has to go through the Strait of Malacca. 80% of China's oil goes through there. You're talking, you embargo the Strait of Malacca, you're talking about sort of what we did to Japan prior to the United States getting into World War II, where we cut off Japan's oil and they went and bombed our boats. Like this is they're major moves.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow, yeah.
Malacca, Malacca. Yeah. If
Yeah,
you're
I'm looking
looking
at
that up.
that. Fascinating.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what Trump is doing, is trying to prevent the de-evolution into another global conflict. Like manufacturing wise, this no longer it's not a unipolar world at all. When you talk about like intermediary versus finished products manufacturing, like that's split up on purpose. Like China tends to take manufacture more mid-tier products, and they depend on a lot of what the US creates to run those things. There's a gap in processing power that China just doesn't have the way the United States does, but they have manufacturing power, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
uneven. It's uneven in a lot of ways that the U.S. has sort of let happen to itself foolishly.
Fascinating. Yeah, there's all sorts of articles now I'm seeing about the
Uh-huh.
Strait of Malacca. It seems like it's
The
propagating
Malacca
more in the
dilemma.
news now.
Yeah, and it has to do with now. I think more people are finally starting to come off this train of like, there's no point in what us doing any of this stuff around the world,
Mm.
and more people and a lot of people have been saying, like we've been saying this for a long time, that like Venezuela had more to do with China than it had to do with Venezuela, and Iran has more to do with China than it has to do with Iran. And then that's like we were talking about the Strait of Malacca about this when all this with the Strait of Hormuz started happening a little bit with Venezuela. And then sure enough, 2 days ago, we see this military cooperation thing with Indonesia and the United States. It's like, well, that's literally it. That's it. Like that's another,
Mm.
and then everyone was like, why does Trump want Greenland? Well, it's like global warming is part of that, because there's all this melt ice there's all this ice that's melted. So now it's severely more navigable than it used to be even 30 years ago.
Oh,
And then the Russians and the Chinese have a much heavier footprint in the region. And then also a lot of these missiles we're talking about are traveling over the top of the world. And what sits in Greenland? Well, there's an Air Force base there called Thule, and it it literally looks for and tracks these things because that's where these missiles go over the top of the world, you know? So it's like,
Mm.
this isn't hard stuff.
No, yeah,
You know,
kind of
it's
like if you've been paying attention, right, right.
exactly.
You see the moves and the plays unfold.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, interesting. Huh.
Speaking of China, like I'm really interested to get back to this UDL thing that you were talking about, like what you think use case wise it
Yeah.
has.
So the UDL, I have a huge document on it. Let me open up my document. Um, it's called Space Mapper, and it's China's equivalent to UDL of the Unified Data Library, and it's all of their geospatial intelligence and all of their visualizations, their source code for their algorithms for tracking their space satellites. And I became aware that they do not share it with the United States and that the United States doesn't have it and that they would be interested in that.
Mm,
So so I went out and got all of it. And
that's wild.
I scraped most of it
Okay. Is this like
directly
real
from their main
time?
site. Hmm? Sorry?
The UDL is have like the capability geospatially, you said, right? Like real time geospatial information.
Think of it more so as a data library. It's
Okay.
kind of where they're storing and ingesting all of their information and kind of distributing it out kind of as a I should find the list of all the countries. There's quite a few countries involved. There's about
Mm,
13 other countries, and it's an information sharing kind of system, right? Kind
mm-hmm.
of almost to showcase we have such great information, we can give this to you as a freebie, kind of to show that we're the leader of all of this information. And everyone's involved, China's involved, and China's one of the only ones who doesn't share any
Shocker.
of their orbital TLEs or any of their data.
Hmm.
So, who the hell are they not to share any data? So,
For sure.
yeah, the US was interested in it. I found out from someone else, totally just random. And I was like, well, I wonder if I can find any of it on the internet. That would be cool, right? See if
Hmm.
I can download any of it. And I downloaded all of it. And it was about 20 waves, about 18 waves of extracting all the information.
Damn.
Um, yeah, there's about 66,000 objects, 6,000 rocket bodies, 17,512 Chinese orbital TLEs. And it's funny, one of their oldest satellites that was on the first row was
Hmm.
one of our old deprecated American ones, showing
Yeah.
that they're still tracking it and kind of keeping
Hmm.
logs of it with their own algorithm. Maybe a little bit more over my understanding. Um, I'm not
Dude,
too sure.
it
Yeah.
goes back to what we were talking about before with this wargaming stuff. Like, that's the kind of shit you would plug in to an artificial intelligence and use and let it have it at its disposal. You don't even need to tell it what to do with it. It just is gonna
Yes.
it's just going to interpret on its own and be like, I have this massive data library at my disposal. You
Yes.
know, it's like God mode.
Yeah. And it's funny that there's just such an interest around kind of satellites, geo warrants, dropping polygons on buildings, drones, GPS, that apparently there's great concern over our GPS systems
Hmm.
and the potential that they can be manipulable to the point where you can redirect things in the moment.
Hmm.
And it's just so interesting, right? I mean, I guess it's all satellites at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. But what do you think about that? Just the manipulation of GPS kind of in a wartime scenario. Are you familiar with that or
A
anything
little
like
bit.
that?
Yeah, no. I know Space Force does some stuff like that. We were talking about it earlier when it comes to rerouting. things and then spoofing the operator into thinking that whatever they're
Yes.
using is going from the point B that they determined prior to
Yes.
like missile launch, right? So that happens. Dude, that could have so many different applications. Think of ocean navigation, you know. It,
Yeah.
if you're relying on technology, I'm sure you could figure out at some point that it's no longer working, and then a lot of these guys are taught to like navigate by the stars and all that shit, right?
Sure. Wow.
But
Yeah.
that's like way more difficult, and I would assume not as efficient. I mean, I'm not a expert on that, like traversing the ocean, but I'm sure that would be a lot harder. You know, it's like the difference between like a laser pointer and a shotgun. I feel like maybe, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You could pass bad information again, like you think that something is coming your direction, but it isn't, or vice versa. I mean, certainly, like that has so many different applications. If you're told the enemy is headed toward your eastern flank and you get shown video of them heading to your eastern flank, but then they show up on your western flank, like that's a problem. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, so like
Yeah. Sure.
that's where that certainly has a bunch of the spoofing of GPS is an old concept as
Mm.
well. The jamming, like that was happening when we went into Iran here a month and a half ago or whenever it was. We were doing that to a lot of these different tankers and other like the Chinese had like an intel collection boat that was out there as well that got jammed. um so I mean it has major applications, I guess, to answer your question, you know. And
Yeah. Yeah. Makes me think about the Discombobulator. Is that the actual name of that device?
I think it might be, dude. I think it might be.
The Discombobulator, bro. It's great. What an awesome name. Makes you wonder about that, huh? All those conspiracy theories about Havana syndrome ago. You were
Mm-hmm.
crazy to talk anything about that.
Right.
For the Russians allowing the Cubans to use that on our diplomats in Cuba almost makes you wonder if it's payback for allowing them to do that by killing all those Cubans in Venezuela. It's
Yeah.
very interesting.
That
Yeah.
it may, dude. People are petty that way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've listened to some theories about like what it does with like the water barrier in your cells and stuff like that, and why those guys were like bleeding from orifices and shit. Like this just sounds absolutely fucking terrible.
It's like a
They
microwave, right?
were
Wow.
shitting their pants, you know, like literally, you know, supposedly. Um, I don't know, that the
Egads,
discombobulator, it
man.
makes me wonder like how big of an area can we discombobulate, you know, or is it more direct? You know what I mean? Like these guys on the terrace are going to get discombobulated, but everybody in the city square can't because there's too many people and the area is too big. Like, you know what I
How big
mean?
of an area can we
That's what I'm
That's the
saying.
real. Those are the real questions that are being
Seriously.
conducted. Yeah.
Like,
How big
could
of
you
an area can we do? Is
discombobulate a
it more
city?
direct?
Like, what do you
That's a good
fucking need
area.
for
That's a
that?
good
You know?
question, man.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah, and it
I
was
just
on a
kind of
helicopter
wonders.
too. It's pretty
Right.
badass, dude. They were flying around with that thing, dude.
Oh yeah. Well,
Wow.
again, I go back to if whatever we're seeing that's cool, there's something infinitely cooler on the
Sure.
other side of the door, you know, the ghost
Yes.
murmur thing, you know, the discombobulator. Again, like you said, like as a conspiracy theory, is this predictive programming? Like a lot of this stuff winds up like, think of Eagle Eye. You remember that movie with Shia LaBeouf?
No, I don't think I do.
It's kind
Eagle
of a
Eye.
corny movie, but it has to do with like mass surveillance.
Hmm.
And if I remember right, it is like an artificial intelligence sort of thing that is using every bit of tech around you to collect data on you, and then it builds like a predictive
Interesting.
model about
Yeah.
whatever,
Hmm.
you know. It's like this all-knowing omniscient thing supposedly,
Oh,
like that sort of
I'll have
exists
to watch
now.
this again soon. It does. It
Yeah.
does. It's a combination of Minority Report and all these things. Yeah.
It
Hmm.
makes me wonder what were your latest one about these scientists that have gone missing or are
Mhm.
dead. Like what do these guys all know? Like that's not,
It
I
is
don't
weird,
believe in
right?
coincidence surrounding that in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form.
Especially because it has something to do with Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And, nuclear is in the conversation with everything that's kind of going around. It is interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, I've actually been sitting on that for a couple weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just kind of hesitant on posting it. And then all of a sudden last night, it's all over the internet. And then
Mm-hmm.
today, it's all over the internet. Like it's just breaking the news cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Peter Ducey commenting on it. They only think it's 10. It's more than 10. It's 11. I think I've counted a few more than 11 too. From what I found, it's 11. I've got about a 90-page PDF that I generated from just researching it. And
What do you
I
think
don't
the
know. I
connection
don't know.
is, and like the why?
Gosh, man, I don't know. Me not knowing anything whatsoever between you and me, not like
Mm-hmm.
on a public setting, if it was just me telling you, I would think it's probably we're going to drop a nuke on someone and
No
that this
shit.
is inadvertently involved because it has to do with nuclear scientists. I mean, why are you
Fuck,
taking out all
man.
these people from one side or the other? Because apparently it has something to do with 20 Iranian nuclear scientists that I think were taken out a year ago. But I mean, it is curious. It's all Department of Defense contractors. It does revolve around Los Alamos laboratory. It does involve
It feels new.
nuclear scientists. What do you mean new? Like all of it?
No, what I mean is whatever it is that they're obviously covering up, it's like
Yeah.
it's these guys have some sort of moral or ethical issue with its rollout, is what it makes me think of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you know, the let me get her name right. It's Caroline Levitt, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the
she's
White
the
House
press
press secretary.
secretary. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, she kind of denied all of it, of the White House or the US knowing of any of it. And there's an incredible amount of sources that kind of point to otherwise. I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh man, bro. I mean,
No, yeah, no. The White House press secretary is going to give you whatever the
sure,
bottom line
sure.
is, you know, the approved thing. But no, I do like the disappearances, and then too, there's like this UAP angle everybody keeps introducing into it. You know, is it a alternative energy thing? Is it a weapon? Is it um a mode of transportation? Are we talking about some sort of like weird interdimensionality thing, which I've seen floated around a bunch? You
Yeah.
know, who knows? I don't know. It's just there's this is like the internet and the
Aliens.gov. They
right,
bought aliens.gov.
right.
What's up with that? Yeah.
Like is there's just this plan to just take out these somewhat adjacent scientists who sort of have something to do with one another directionally, but kind of don't. They don't necessarily touch one another, and create this conspiracy out of it and let people infer what they will as a diversion tactic. You know, like these guys are all sitting in a basement 15 floors under the earth somewhere, you know, with
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
pool and a kitchen, you know, so they're
Yeah.
happy. Like, who fucking knows, you know?
All the lizard people are gonna come out of the
Right.
ground,
The
bro.
ant
Yeah.
people, the lizard people.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it
I
makes me
don't
wonder.
know. So much happening, right? I hope someone's keeping a good solid timeline, like an almanac of this year of everything that's been happening, because the first few months alone have been like
Uh-huh.
record-breaking stuff, man. I mean,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I think Venezuela was like the first thing that happened like within the first few days, and then
It's like
just kind of
generational things happening in months, you know? Like we
yes,
snatched up the leader of a foreign country with a discombobulator. Like try
yes.
explaining that to somebody from the 50s, you know?
With the discombobulator. Mencho in Mexico, forgot about that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We were in Ecuador. We were doing a little excursion in Ecuador for a little bit. I think we were somewhere else. We've been in Iran for quite a while.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know. Exciting times, right? One
Uh-huh.
can only imagine what the future will hold.
Earlier when you were talking, you were talking about wargaming, as you have an interest in wargaming, or war
I
driving,
do.
excuse me. We were talking about wargaming, war driving. Are you able to
Yeah.
explain to people like what it is you're doing when you're doing that?
Yes, war driving is the act of cataloging and collecting open Wi-Fi signals that are being emitted from routers or devices or wireless access points.
Uh-huh.
So we have devices. There's different types of devices. You can use a cell phone or you can create a little computer or a Raspberry Pi. And the practice of what we do is driving around neighborhoods
Mhm.
and passively collecting all of these signals. It's
Mhm.
really a form of signals intelligence. So
Mhm.
I can drive through a neighborhood and document and map, specifically map the GPS location, the MAC address, the Wi-Fi SSID, and other metadata, what channel, what security type of all these Wi-Fi devices are. So what does that mean? That means I know where your smart dildo is. I know where your Fitbit is, where all of your cell phones are, any device that has a Wi-Fi chip, which is virtually everything at this point,
Literally.
and we can document and classify all of it. And I start off with the vibrator one because that is an actual use case that someone did a few years ago. We found the MAC, well, I didn't find the MAC. Someone found the MAC address, right? We, as in the nerds. Uh,
Mhm.
someone found the MAC address
As a group.
of the smart chip that was in the vibrator, and then boom, you look on a database of where all these Wi-Fi signals are, and you've kind of inadvertently mapped and documented in real life where all of these devices have been scanned before in the past. So it is a way to kind of develop pattern of life on different individuals based on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. You drive by my house and I have a
Mhm.
device in my mailbox or something scanning, and well, I would be able to see the Wi-Fi on your phone, the Wi-Fi chip on your phone, the Wi-Fi chip in your vehicle, the Wi-Fi chip on your smart bracelet or your health fitness tracker, the Wi-Fi chip in the smart teddy bear or anything like that, as well as additionally everything that's Bluetooth from that radio spectrum, all the Bluetooth signals, and now SDR. SDR is
Mhm.
fun because that opens up a whole new world of things that we can track and monitor. Doorbells, garage alarms, tire
Mhm.
pressure sensors. TPMS is my favorite, tire pressure sensors.
Mhm.
So
Really?
each
Why is
tire
that your
gets
favorite?
it's another way to identify that you drove in front of my house. I have your 4
Oh,
tire pressure sensors going in front of my house. Each one has a unique, kind of number, if you will, or we'll call it like a serial number. So
it's a good way to
I got
scare
4.
somebody.
It is, dude. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I wanted to buy one of those real expensive like weather towers you put on,
Mhm.
right? Measure the precipitation and rain and what. Cool, right?
Yeah.
And they're
Very Doc
expensive,
Brown.
man. Yeah, they're expensive, bro. I can't afford one. They're like four,
Mhm.
500, $700, right?
Mhm.
Well, with SDR, I found out I can track all of my neighbors because it's unencrypted. So now I
Well,
have
there you go.
5 of them in my neighborhood, bro.
Holy shit.
I
That's
guess I have 5
crazy.
neighbors who have them, so I can pull them all in from 433 megahertz.
Mhm.
I can see the humidity, precipitation. I pull it up on my TV. It's
Mhm.
hilarious. But it's kind of the wonderful world of war driving and all of the signals that are being emitted. And man, is there a lot to go off of. Yeah, you know, there's more Wi-Fi chips and Bluetooth chips than there are cell phones in the world at this point,
Mhm.
and significantly more. And it's just a great kind of avenue and field to start monitoring for signals analysis and kind of developing pattern of life behaviors. And anyone can really do it, but it's honestly kind of useless unless you have a large data set.
Mhm.
Everything's kind of useless unless you have a very large data set, right?
If you got access
For
to a military base, it would be very useful.
oh yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, my idea was kind of putting them in 4 corners of a police station because then
Mhm.
you can kind of track who's coming within the perimeter or kind of
Mm.
develop pattern of life of who's coming around the precinct. We want to put them around street takeovers, kind of identify who's
Mhm.
who from that, different things. And
Riot control. It would be a great way to find
oh yeah,
agitators for riot control.
I think they may be using a similar form, probably through ad tracking for protests and riots. Yeah,
Law
yeah.
enforcement agencies. You think like the FBI maybe?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think so. Um, but yeah, that's war driving. And it's a really great way to kind of get into everything with like signals intelligence, just developing a little project with a Raspberry Pi, small Linux project. And it's very practical. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I have the number 2 group in the world for war driving.
Mhm.
We have one of the largest groups in the world for doing this. We're one of the youngest groups and one of the largest groups we've found over collectively, I don't know, man, maybe over like 100 million Wi-Fi at this point.
Damn.
But yeah, I love it, man. I love it. All the nerd stuff.
No, there's definitely an offensive way to use this sort of thing. We had in the Air Force, there was an installation, I'm not going to say which, that made a contract with a company that they thought was an American company to bring automated buses on base to basically just give a mode of transportation for people trying to get around the base. And they realized within a relative short period of time that those trucks were mapping the base, and not mapping it just because like it was helping the efficiency of these buses, but like mapping it and then reporting this information back to the Chinese. And of course, like that halted immediately, and then changed the game when it came to looking at contracts and looking at shell companies. And just because it's based out of Frisco, Texas doesn't mean it's really based out of Frisco, Texas or whatever. Oh well, there it is, it's in Tianjin, China actually, and it belongs to this company, which
Mm,
is a shell company inside of another one that's located in
yeah.
Hong Kong or whatever. Sort of doing the there's a word for this when it comes to like chain of custody, I guess, for like a company, for lack of a better term. But anyway,
Hmm.
yeah. If you did what you were talking about, somebody went on base and was war driving on an Air Force base or whatever, you could get so much information, especially going and hanging around like a command post or a flight line, I would bet. Because a lot of the I don't even know if I should say this, like a lot of those routers and things like that, I'm sure they're not sophisticated. Like this is just the same router you've got at a apartment
Yeah,
complex off
and
base,
yeah, and it really makes you wonder about the router advisory that the NSA and everyone's been putting out lately,
Mhm.
advising everyone to turn off their router, the new FCC router ban on buying foreign internet
Mhm.
routers. I mean, geez, man, it just
You
really
don't know
makes you
what's in them.
wonder. No, you really don't. I mean,
Ha- have you heard
yeah,
about the fact that there are, and we can kind of wrap, I'll do this. I'll wrap up on this question. I'd love to hear your thoughts on
sure.
it. But uh the highway that runs kind of up the middle of the country, it passes by F.E. Warren Air Force Base and then up toward Minot Air Force Base. And there are 3 Air Force bases in the United States that have missile fields. Malmstrom is one, it's where I was at, F.E. Warren, and then Minot are the others. And all along the corridor for this highway are a bunch of telecommunications towers. And those telecommunication towers are full of Huawei hardware. And it sits adjacent to all of these missile silos, launch facilities, LFs, we call them. And the concern, obviously, is signal jamming. And if you need to use your first strike capability or respond in kind, you may not be able to because of signal jamming. And there was this back and forth that went on between the FBI and then whatever, I don't remember. It was a variety of cell companies that were using these towers. And the FBI was like, you need to go and remove all this Huawei hardware off these things because of national security concerns. And the private companies were like, pay us to do that, and then we'll do that. Otherwise, it's staying. And then the sum of money that they wanted was an ungodly amount. And so there they sit, all of these towers. And then, last thing I'll say, when I was in Kenya, when I was deployed to Kenya, I got there. I was the security forces flight chief, so I am in charge of day-to-day operations for my flight for conducting security there. And I got handed the duty cell phone. And at this point in time, like I knew what Huawei was. I had just written a paper for my bachelor's degree on how unsafe WhatsApp was at the time. So just kind of like date this time frame. And it's a Huawei phone, and this chat is on WhatsApp. I'm like, this is stupid as fuck. Like, what are you guys using this? 5 clicks from Camp Simba, because it's no longer a data mask location, is a port the Chinese are building for the Kenyans. And obviously, it's dual purpose for a lot of reasons. It's a port that the Chinese now have a lifelong lease on, and it's used for civilian and both military purposes. And so, why are we using a Chinese cell phone and WhatsApp to communicate back and forth, things that are operational security related. You know what I mean? So like how unserious the US government can be, but at the same time wants you to turn your router off or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like
Mm.
there's
It's a
such
very good
a
juxtaposition. Yeah. I
exactly.
think I think as Americans we have a symptom to kind of be aware but not really do anything about it. Because this has been a discussion that's been going around for years now. Similarly to how the Chinese nationals are buying up large amounts of farmland directly
Hmm.
surrounding all of our military bases. So
Presumption is
I
one of them.
I did not know about the Huawei, the Huawei cell phone towers. That's very alarming.
Right.
Yeah, that's very alarming. Um, how can they think about something like that when they're giving out advisories and telling us that we can't buy Chinese routers? What about all
It.
these other things then? You know,
Hmm.
it's almost like I don't know, man. I don't want to be disparaging of the US, but it's like, are we in some
He
form
can.
of like idiocracy, bro? Like,
Oh,
what the
certainly.
hell's going on, dude? Like, we all know this. We all know it's an issue, but no one really wants to address it. I think because it's I think it's because it's not blatant in your face. It's part of that
Hmm.
cyber aspect, right? It's not someone holding a gun in your face asking you for money. It's kind of very passive, and it's this thing that's digital and the internet and computers, and it doesn't have a physical shape or body. So I think it's hard for people to kind of comprehend that.
It's
And
over
I think
there.
yes, and I think the ones who really understand are people like you and me who are involved with cybersecurity and technology and kind of have like a scaffolding or a foundation of the fundamentals of how this is and kind of yeah how dangerous it is. That is pretty scary. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and I was wondering that too. Like how do we know what all of our cell phone infrastructure is? Is it
Hmm.
where did all those components and hardware come from? And when you drive around the country and you look at all of the cell phone towers, it's easy to tell that many of them have been retrofitted with newer types of antennas and
Hmm.
additional systems. All
Hmm.
of the cell phone towers now have bulbs and antennas, which aren't the classic traditional cell phone antenna. So it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, I don't know. It is pretty scary. It is pretty scary, right?
Well, and they
I
build them
mean,
to look like these
mhm.
weird tree things. Like it's like
Oh
they
yeah,
they
yeah.
don't want you
There's
to
a
notice it's there. And when you do, you're just like, "Oh, that's ugly." Like, "Well, they're
yeah.
stupid trying to hide that." Like I see it, but like you're not really looking at it though, you know?
Yeah, there's a name for that. I forgot what the name for it is. They
Mm.
design it's part of urban planning to not be an
Mhm.
eyesore for the community. But when you
Right.
find it, it's pretty weird, right?
Right.
It's
That
like a
doesn't look
fake
like a
palm
pine
tree.
tree. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or a palm tree. Yeah, one of them. Well,
Yeah, pine trees here.
excuse me, to your point though, uh you talk about is it idiocracy? That's why I sort of always laugh when like people come up with these really grandiose conspiracy theories that the government is
Yes.
supposedly behind, because it's like in one breath you were gonna definitely tell me the government is a bunch of incompetent idiots, but at the same time you think that they're capable of orchestrating this massive conspiracy that somehow has these like metaphysical ties to it, and then involves all of these actors from around the world, and apparently an unlimited supply of resources and money. Like that makes no sense. Like I think that attributing it to something like Hanlon's razor, it's better to infer incompetence rather than malice when it comes to some of these things. That's it. These are like if you
Yes,
could
I
see
agree.
just how much the average person works in government in areas that it's almost like it's a Radio Shack employee that has control over something that is a national security issue. It's like you guys just have no clue. And there are areas where it's like, these are your very best people working on this. But then there are a bunch of other areas where it's just like, no, actually, that's Brenda that works at the DMV. That's it. It's just a severe amount of incompetence. And then also the size of the US government and why, you know, um, things like this that happen, like the towers. It makes me think of, I'm trying to remember the name of the German general. Uh, during World War One, the Germans are marching. They're going to invade Belgium, and they understand that it's going to kick off the treaty that Belgium has with World War I, and they're sort of talking about changing the direction and the movement of the German military. Like the entirety of the German military is on this like swing arm march across Europe, and the response that is given to this guy is that you don't improvise the movement of millions, right? Like there's this severe need to plan and to have logisticians and people that understand
Mm.
probability and all of this stuff that go into it, and then before you can even kick this thing off. Well, there's my point to say that is there are hundreds of thousands of government employees improvising all day,
Yes.
and that's why
Yes.
you wind up with things that make no sense. It's not a grand conspiracy. It's just not even all incompetence. It's just people. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
anyway, I
Hmm.
always tell people like
I
use
agree.
Hanlon's razor for more things than you probably realize.
Yes. Don't attribute to malice what can be attributable to incompetence. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm. I
I
would
think
have
there's
to
more
agree
of
with
that than
that.
anything. Yeah.
I would have to
Well,
agree with
dude,
that.
Patrick, it was absolutely enlightening talking to you. I would love to have you come back at some
Yes.
point and talk again. And
I
I
appreciate
actually,
it.
yeah, dude, you're one of the fewer guests we've had that actually asked me a bunch of questions. And I really like that too, because it makes for a more interesting interview and it feels more conversational. And
Oh, I
you're not just,
appreciate that.
yeah, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the conversational, right? You kind of learn a lot more. And
Hmm.
I appreciate you inviting me onto your show. It's very gracious of you, and I'm honored to receive the invitation. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. One thing I want to let you do before we get off is plug where people can come find you and to support the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram and Substack under the username Ringmaster, and that's with a four instead of an E.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm on Instagram and Substack. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun kind of researching all sorts of things that shouldn't be research, to put it lightly.
I like that. Well, I will also put your links in the show notes for anybody listening if they want to go find it. But again,
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming on the show. And thank you guys so much for listening. Like I said before, please check out the show notes and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.